Welcome to Box Free with Stephanie. Today I want to show you how to make some basic foods with simple ingredients from scratch. And I hope you can discover cooking from scratch is fast and delicious. So let's cook together. Today we're going to make chocolate cake with chocolate frosting because why not? It's delicious. And it's somebody's birthday coming up, so it's what I usually make for birthdays. Not always, but about half the time. So let's just start. We are going to start with 3 cups of flour. This recipe, one reason I kind of like it is because it doesn't have equal amounts of flour and sugar the way most cakes do. And I mean, this only has 3 cups versus 2 cups, so it's not a huge difference, but a little bit. But this is the kind of recipe that you do it's called crazy cake, if anybody's heard of like the crazy chocolate cake. Okay, I'm doing 2 cups of sugar. I don't know if I said that. So anyway, this is called crazy cake, but I just call it my favorite chocolate cake because it is my favorite chocolate cake. So we're going to do 2 cups of flour, 3 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, and then we do 1/3 cup of cocoa powder. So I'm going to add that in. And then this is really fast because you just stir it with a whisk. You don't have to beat it for like 2 minutes and then add something else and beat it for a minute. So, I mean, not that that's that difficult, but I just really like this and it tastes delicious. So now I'm doing 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and it's just a new box, so it's a little bit crumbly. I'm going to smash that. 1 teaspoon of salt. You're adding all your dry ingredients together. And then you add all your wet ingredients. So flour, sugar, cocoa, soda, salt. Okay, that's it for my dry ingredients. So you really are just doing this to kind of break up any little cocoa chunks that are in your dry mix. But it's really fast. And then you bake it for 30 minutes, and then we're going to make our chocolate frosting. And I can't think of what that frosting is really called. I feel like there's a, whoopsie, oh boy, another name for it, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so there's still a little bit of lumps in my cocoa powder, but that doesn't matter, it'll be fine. Boy, I'm really making a mess. Okay, so now you're gonna add 2 cups of cold water, 1/2 cup of oil. And the original recipe actually called for a 3/4 cup of oil. So if this seems, I don't know, dry to you for some reason, just up your oil to 3/4 cup because I do 1/2 cup. And this is a 9x13 pan. And then we'll do vinegar. This is why it's called the crazy cake, because of the vinegar, and then vanilla. Okay, so I like to make sure I have all my wet stuff there because once you add your wet to your dry, the reaction starts, and I like to be ready. Okay, so 1/2 cup of oil, and then 2 tablespoons of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of, not vanilla, vinegar. And if you don't have vinegar, you can also use lemon juice. You just need some acidic thing. And there must be something about the acidity, oh my God, acidity and the flour and stuff that makes it get all nice and light. It's not a super duper light cake, but it's really good. And 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then that's it. So flour, sugar, cocoa, I did that. Water, vanilla, oil, this. Okay. I always have to double check my recipe because this one's written like everything's kind of together. So I have to make sure I actually do it all. And then you just have to stir it slowly. Oh wait, shoot, I was going to use my other, spoon because look, this is certainly not a nice way to stir it right now. So I'm going to grab this now that I've got this giant mess going on. That's all right. Maybe I'll use that later once I get this kind of stirred up better. So yeah, this is a chocolate cake that, whoopsie, is just really nice. And I've never done a layer cake with it. I don't know, I suppose you could, but it works really nice in a 9x13 pan just because it's such a kind of a thicker cake. And it's just really easy. So I don't know why you'd want to do a box mix when you can do a from scratch cake, because look how easy it is. Whatever, it's just stirring. A few things that you have to add. and then you get a nice delicious cake. This is like my husband's favorite cake, so when it's his birthday, he usually wants chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. And that's fine with me because it's pretty yummy. So now I'm going to take my whisk. Now that I have most of my stuff in here, I want to actually use this just to try to get any of my lumps out of there. I mean, most cakes use your mixer or whatever, and that's what you're doing, is kind of incorporating all these ingredients, making sure there's no lumps. But this one, I just love the simplicity of the one bowl, one quick stir. So I don't know if you can tell, but now it's a little bit smoother. I'm gonna dump it out, so I better not show you guys, but it's nice and smooth like that. So that's all you're looking for. And then because this is a decent amount of grease, the half a cup, I don't grease my pan. So I don't know, if you find that you need to, you sure can, but I don't find I need to. Works fine. So this is there's my oven telling me it's ready. So I preheated to 350. So I'm just going to pour this in. I don't know how you guys can see. Let's see, maybe I'll pour it this way. Pour it in, easy peasy. I have a few teeny tiny little lumps, but that should be okay. So with cheesecake, in my cheesecake thing, I talk about, my cheesecake show, I talk about like pounding out the air bubbles or whatever. And I think that's a good idea with this one, just because, I don't know, you do sometimes end up with these little air bubbles. And, you know, it's not like it's horrible. You can see some already forming. So I'm probably going to give this one a few taps, just because I can. It doesn't really wreck it. All right, so there's your cake. A few taps like that. We'll call it good. Get this chocolate off of here. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the oven. 350. Hey, why isn't my oven light on? There we go. Okay, I'm going to set the timer for 30 minutes, and then when we get back, we're going to take out the cake, and then we're going to make our frosting right away and frost it on a hot cake. That's the one trick with crazy cake. Okay, so we'll be back in about 30 minutes. Okay, we're back. I just pulled this out of the oven. I'll check it one more time to make sure that nothing is on my toothpick. It's clean, so that means we're good. So now this is really nice and hot. I'm going to make my burner hot and make my frosting. So I need to just move this over so that I don't get my arms here. Oh, and this actually baked for like 36 to 37 minutes. So just use your toothpick as your actual test. Okay, so now we're gonna make our chocolate frosting. So I'm gonna put my pan on here. I'm gonna start with butter actually, so I can get some good stuff going. I need 2 tablespoons of butter, so that's 1, 2. So we're going to drop that in. And I also forgot to say, when I was making the batter recipe, that I think one of the reasons this chocolate cake is called crazy cake is because it doesn't have any eggs. Like, you know, cakes are flour, sugar, eggs, butter, whatever. And this doesn't have any eggs. So I think that's kind of the other reason. So it's a really good recipe for people that have egg allergies, because you can make a delicious cake. So I did 2 tablespoons of butter. Now I'm going to do half a cup of sugar, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. Hang on, I got to add one more thing. I need to add 2 tablespoons of milk. Look what I'm using today, my cutest little milky cow thing, whatever that thing is called. So I got this at a garage sale, and I don't use it very often, but when I do, I think it's so fun. So here's a little cow. Whoopsie. Giving us 1 tablespoon and 2 tablespoons, and it's just adorable. So it's my little cow. Okay, so that's it. Now we are just going to stir this. And I know there is a name for this kind of frosting, because it's the kind that you pour on your hot cake, and then, well, this is hot, it kind of like glazes it almost, except that's just a flat cake, so it doesn't necessarily like run down it. But then once the frosting like cools, then it has kind of like this harder layer on top. So it's It's very different than like a buttercream frosting. But it's delicious on this. And I should also say that I don't put very much frosting on mine. I guess I'm not very nice when it comes to a cake. I don't like load up the frosting. So my recipe for frosting is kind of a thin layer. And the way my mom gave me the recipe originally was twice as much frosting. So then you get like a nice thick layer, which of course is delicious, but I just didn't want all that. So partly because we eat kind of big pieces of cake. So felt like it was one way I could cut back on the sugar and all that, but whatever. It's kind of goofy because when you're having cake, you just are having cake and there's no way around the sugar or anything. So anyway, but I'm just telling you that if you think the frosting is too little, there's a reason, because I made it smaller than what the recipe called for. So just double the recipe and it's easy peasy. Okay, so we just have to wait a minute for this to boil, and then you're going to boil this for 1 minute. Then you're going to take it off the heat, which I need to get a little thing for. Take it off the heat and add your chocolate chips and stir that until it's all melted, and then put it on. So we're close to boiling here. Not quite. This is also like a really good cake to bring if you have to travel with it, because you can put it in a 9x13 pan and it stores well and it keeps well. So, and it's like sturdy. So anyway, this is a good one if you have a potluck or, you know, you have to travel with the cake. You can travel. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see, I'm starting to get little white dots, not like colors. It looks like ice when the ice is melting, and they called it pancake ice. I'm getting pancake ice in my frosting. But I'm also getting the bubbles around the edges. So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. And we'll boil this for 1 minute. And there's some trick about the 1 minute thing. Like, you don't want to boil it too much, because then you're going to almost make candy. If you don't boil it enough, then I don't think it like melts the sugar enough. And so I don't know if you can see that, but it's really white and foamy now. And that's what we're looking for. 1 minute of that kind of thing. So we'll just wait, and I think in the meantime I'll get my chocolate chips ready. So I use semi-sweet chocolate chips with this. I don't know if you could try milk chocolate, and I'll go a little bit heavy on that. You wouldn't want to use dark chocolate, I don't think. I just don't think it would taste very well with this cake. And I don't think you'd want to use dark cocoa powder. I don't know, you maybe could get away with that in the cake. Or whatever, if you like the taste of dark cocoa, then you could definitely use it. But because I usually make this for my husband, he does not really like dark chocolate. I'm certainly not going to use dark chocolate and be like, here's a cake you don't really like. Great. Okay. So there's my timer. So I'm going to take this off my heat. Okay. So see how bubbly it is? Like, that's what I've been doing for a minute. Stirring it, you know, looking like that. Okay, now I'm going to add my heavy 1/2 cup of chips. Can't forget my 2. And then you melt this. And this, of course, melts pretty quickly. And I usually do it this way. I bake my cake, and then as soon as I take my cake out, I make my frosting. And it usually works pretty good, because you just want your cake to be hot. But it doesn't have to be like immediately hot out of the oven. Okay, so now you can see how this is getting really thick and lovely. It tastes really good. And you just want to make sure you get all your chocolate chips smoothed out. Okay, so I'm going to slide this over. Okay, now what we're going to do is just pour it on. And then we'll use our spatula to kind of spread it around. But if you had, if you did this with like pedophores or whatever, little pedophores, oh my gosh, I don't know if it's the right word. All of a sudden I'm freaking out thinking it's the wrong word. But anyway, those little bitty cakes, they might just glaze really nicely. Pedophores, isn't it? Yeah. I'm thinking like petticoats, like no. Anyway, oh my gosh. I'm going crazy, I think. So before this gets too hard in here, I want to scrape every bit out because it's really good. And it does kind of firm up like right away. Gets almost, you can see how it's like firm right now. So is that a sign that I boiled it too long? I don't really know. But you can see here how I certainly don't have oodles of frosting on here. Like I'm going to have to make a thin layer to make sure, whoopsie, I'm using the wrong thing here. This isn't working out. I'm going to have to make a thin layer to make sure that I have coverage everywhere. So you can imagine twice as much frosting on this cake would give you a really thick, nice layer. And you wouldn't have to spread nearly as much as I am. Again, because I'm trying to just make a really thin layer. But it still ends up with plenty of frosting. So you'll just have to experiment and see what you like. And then you can take a minute to try to make it look smooth. Because normally I do some writing on here or, you know, some kind of little decoration. So like that. And then, so good. Okay, so that is our chocolate cake with chocolate frosting, and it is delicious. So thank you very much for watching. I can't cut into it right now because it's just way too hot, but I've made this 100 times and I know it's delicious. So I hope you make it, and I hope your family loves it. And I appreciate your time watching Box Free with Stephanie, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.